Welcome to Wealth Mavericks. On today's episode, we're talking about how to improve and strengthen your marriage, no matter what stage you find yourselves in.
Listen more than you speak. Ask those questions. How are they doing? And actually care about them.
A lot of people just don't do that work, and then they bring their same self to that next relationship that then doesn't work out. Welcome back to Wealth Mavericks. I'm Erin Nevakosi, and I'm joined today by Joe Ariotto and our special guest, Sean Taylor. Sean is co-owner with his wife, Angie, of Cornerstone Christian Counseling in Colorado, and he's here to share his experience and wisdom on what makes a strong marriage and how to best strengthen your relationship with your spouse, whether you're thriving, barely hanging on, or somewhere in between. Sean, it's great to meet you. Welcome to the podcast.
Glad to be here. Yeah, glad to join in on the conversations you guys have been having. I know this is a wealth of information for your people, and I'm glad to contribute.
Well, we love having you here, and I so look forward to this conversation. A few weeks ago, Joe and I talked about marriage and money, and now we're going to expand it to marriage overall, because choosing a spouse is, of course, the biggest and probably most important decision we will ever make in our lives. Our relationship with our spouse shapes daily life, our family, our future, everything. And when our marriage is strong, everything else in our life just tends to work better. But when our marriage is struggling, that affects everything too. It drains our energy, steals our peace, and makes even the good parts of life harder to enjoy. And at Terra Firma, we get to work with a wide variety of high-achieving doctors. In our 510s work with them. And through that, we see marriages in every stage. You know, couples who are totally in love and thriving, a lot who are just going through the motions, and then some who are really hurting. So today we want to talk through some practical tools that will help strengthen a person's marriage, no matter where they fall on that spectrum. So, Sean, from your perspective, working with so many couples, what do the strongest marriages all have in common?
Well, a leading researcher in couples therapy, his name is John Gottman. He did, it was like a 5-year study on couples, and he observed these couples living in what he called the love lab. And so it was basically, he had these couples live in an apartment, and the apartment was surrounded with cameras, and then each one of their engagements between the two of them were codified and categorized, and because he wanted to see what made for above average couples in terms of marital satisfaction. What were the qualities or the traits or behaviors that they did? And what he found was, he summarized it by this. He said, small things often. Small things often. And he said that is what contributes to the foundational friendship of a vital, happy marriage, which is quite interesting because a lot of people think, okay, well, you have to agree on all these things, or you have to go on great vacations or have a great sex life, or you have to have like a lot of money in the bank and not have like money issues. And he narrowed it down to small things often that contribute to a happy, healthy friendship. So examples of this are, say you're reading the newspaper or scrolling your phone, and instead of being lost in the newspaper or in your phone, you actually raise your eyes and you make a little comment to your spouse and you say, did you know about this? I just read this, and you strike up just a little 2-minute conversation, or it could just be that. And then the reply is, no, I didn't. And then that's crazy. And then you continue on with your day. And then, or you make the bed, and then you pull down just the side of the bed for them because that's the way they like it. You set out a cup of coffee for them, or they do the same thing for you because they know these little things about you. You share these small things often throughout the day, and that adds to your sense of connection throughout the day and throughout your life. And so that was amazing. So it's just small things often. Little practical things that were also highlighted in his research were acts. It was engagements that spur on affection and intimacy. So a lot of times, couples think affection and intimacy is just something that happens. So I feel in love, and this is what happens when we first meet. Somebody we're interested in. We fall in love, and it just seems to happen to us. And then we naturally stay up late, and then we naturally call them, and then you get married, and you get kind of used to each other, and maybe take each other's presence for granted. What happy, healthy relationship or couples do is they continue to have these engagements with each other, getting to know one another, like who they are and becoming that day, even.
Right.
And how are you doing today? And they know intimate details also. How are things going on with your friends? How are things going on at work? How are things going on health wise and internally, emotionally? And they have these little exchanges that actually make them feel not just connected, but then it spur on their affection for each other because you know each other and feel known by each other. And that intimacy then gets cultivated and can get cultivated even intentionally because couples start realizing that, oh, these are the building blocks that create affection and intimacy. It's not something that I just fall into. It was natural then, but now I could do it intentionally.
I feel like we
Well,
could wrap up the episode right there. That's
Yeah.
so much good stuff.
Well, I think we have members that are, I would say, in like 4 different categories within marriage. And I'll go from worst case scenario to best case scenario. Some, and we've had lengthy conversations with them, the heartbreaking agony of going through a really, really terrible divorce, not amicable, fighting, bickering, just everything is a battle. So people from that extreme. And then I'd say, kind of like what Aaron said, kind of people whose marriage is on the rocks. They sense that it's on the rocks. Maybe they've even talked about separation or divorce. And then you can move to kind of just the blasé marriage where it's like, there's no heat, there's no cold. It's just kind of almost the business part, the business relationship who share a house kind of thing. And then those who are like, have a strong marriage that are focused on legacy. How do we pass this on to future generations? So I'd be super curious, like of those 4 categories, what are the types of things that people can do? And I know some of this is like, if it's just one person in the couple who's paying attention, it's like only the things that I can control. I can't demand this of my spouse or ex-spouse. What are some tools that people can use at those different stages?
Yeah, well, maybe we'll start with high conflict and very distant couples. I've worked with a number of couples that are on the verge of divorce or they have had a divorce and now they're trying to figure out how do we co-parent or most of the time it's that because if they don't have kids in the mix, they really try to just distance themselves and be done with the problem or problems that they were experiencing between the two of them. But if they feel locked in and they need to work together, I think first thing is noticing that actually the thing that drew you together and makes you feel connected is actually the thing that makes you feel scared of and repulsed by the other. And that generally is intimacy or vulnerability. Intimacy that led to vulnerability, and the intimacy that led to good vulnerability was I feel like I can open up with you emotionally and mentally and even physically, and we're together, and that led to a sense of vulnerability or intimacy that led to connection. But that same intimacy or vulnerability then also makes us scared and repulsed because oftentimes when we have conflict, we are hurt all the more by this person who knows our vulnerable points and can hurt us by pushing those points or hurting us in those areas. And that is probably the deepest hurt we can experience as humans. Wow. It's a betrayal. And it is a sense that I am unsafe around this person. And so when we feel unsafe, we generally do the one of 3 things that we all are familiar with: fight, flight, or freeze. So oftentimes the fighting is attacking back, or it is distancing ourselves, like running away, or it is freezing, like pulling away and in. If you understand that, that's what's going on naturally, then if you did that intentionally, you can actually implement healthy boundaries and say, I know that I'm vulnerable to getting hurt by this person. So what can I do that helps to keep them at an appropriate distance, like emotionally within myself, so that when I'm physically in their presence, I don't feel like they can hurt me. And that requires actually a lot of work. So like as a counselor, I help people actually establish an internal, like they have to shift away an internal resolve and groundedness, and to also have ways of defending themselves internally so they don't have to retaliate externally.
Hmm. Is it like a mental preparation, like prior to they know they're going to go see the person when they have the kid exchange moment, and it's like being preparing yourself, your heart, and your physiology for that, or
It should, yes, exactly. Actually, so it's doing first the deep level work of understanding how am I vulnerable, like what are my trigger points, what do they do that actually gets under my skin and makes me feel very unsettled and scared or triggered. So, so that when you do show up, you could say, okay, these are the ways they often trigger me. So how am I going to engage with them when I see them next? Like you're talking about, we exchange kids, we go to the baseball game together, we're sitting in the bleachers almost side by side. How can I actually have that internal resolve that helps me to know no matter what they say or do, I'm prepared and I'm solid inside?
Hmm.
So, for those who've gone through or are going through a painful divorce, kids or no kids, you're dealing with this trauma and drama, but you
Yeah.
also want to move forward in your life and heal. So, what advice do you give those people to begin that healing process?
That is, oftentimes it is going through really the stages of grief, for one, because you actually are grieving the death of something. It's, or some things really. It's the death of the relationship. And with that death of the relationship is the death of those hopes and dreams that you had when you first got together.
Hmm.
And then processing what happened and how did I allow myself to get sucked into that, or what do I do now to heal from the wounds that I experienced? And so a grief of what was and what no longer is, but then also a processing that helps us to work through those emotional wounds that we received while we were in the relationship. And then for those that actually want to grow through that experience, it's also learning. And it's learning not just what did they do that hurts me or that hurt me, but what did I do that contributed to some of that dysfunction? Because I don't want to bring that into my next relationship.
Hmm.
Or I don't want my kids to bring that into their relationship. So I'm going to do them a favor and do some of my own work so that I can relate to them what I brought to the relationship and how I've grown as a person, because that's one of the best gifts that we can give to our kids if we do experience divorce and they experience our divorce, is we can learn ourselves and grow ourselves so that we can pass that on to them, because they are going to experience, of course, some negative experiences in that, and then it's going to influence their own relationships for sure. And that's, one of Viktor Frankl was a psychologist who was a Jewish psychologist back in World War II, and he got detained and he was in a concentration camp. He came up with a book. He wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, and it was basically how to find, how to make it through suffering. And one of the things that he brought up was we all need a redemptive purpose to our suffering.
Hmm.
And when we can find a redemptive purpose to our suffering, we can actually endure suffering and flip it into something better. And so finding that redemptive purpose, what can I learn from this that I can employ in my own growth journey, my own relationship journey, and then even pass that on to those around me. So that's one of the best things that we can do with hard experiences.
Just that perspective. It's my sister likes asking this question a lot. Aaron, you've met Lori, but she asked the question a lot. What does this make possible?
There you
Like
go.
this hard pain, whatever it might be. Cool. what does this make possible?
Huh.
So I know there's so much that's outside of the control and in the relationship that can be so hurtful, but I feel like so many of our members need to hear this because they're in this situation. Sean, when you've worked with couples that you've seen like I'll call it like on the brink of separation and or divorce,
Yeah.
that have been able to mend that relationship and pull that back to then create a healthy relationship, what were the commonalities or what were the things that happened to make that so?
Yeah, so we go through different stages. First of all, when a couple comes in, we grow an understanding of the cycle that they're stuck in.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go through a phase called cycle de-escalation. So you and your spouse, you get into these tiffs and you're just experiencing unresolved conflict. And so we actually learn what is going on in that back and forth exchange and how can we interrupt that and slow it down and then help you to communicate what you're really hoping the other person will hear in a way that is hearable. Because the way that you're expressing yourself is overwhelming to them, and the way they're expressing themselves is overwhelming to you. And actually, you're not hearing each other at all. So we slow things down. We help each other to hear each other in new ways and in deeper ways. And then they're able to actually converse about those things they feel passionate about. And it's not in a hurtful way. And so that's one of the main things that we do at that stage. And then they can take that forth and oftentimes that slows down the conflict and helps them to know how to actually have a healthy relationship that then is more stable. And then they can get into actually, okay, now we're stabilized. How does this help us move forward into a different future than where we're heading?
Hmm.
Yeah.
It almost feels like to me, like when I think about people who are in survival, there's not a whole lot that you can think about other than just survive at all
Yeah.
costs. It's truly like gnaw my arm off to escape, whatever, like at
Right.
all costs. And so if you are able to slow down or de-escalate that process and then can apply that first, set of knowledge, you talk about small things often. It's like if you can move out of survival and just begin noticing, okay, man, I'm just gonna do this one thing. I'm gonna do this one thing, this small thing. I'm gonna do it often. That
Yeah.
probably naturally will pull the cycle in the right direction, I would guess.
It will, yeah. But it's such a good point. When we're in fight, flight, or freeze in the intense zone of conflict, we cannot progress towards anything. We actually need to slow things down and de-escalate,
Mm-hmm.
make it safe, and then that develops the platform for us to move forward.
I want to talk about the couples who I think a lot of people fall into this category, and I see this in my work with my members. They're not on the brink of divorce because they understand they don't want to be divorced financially or, for the kids or whatever reason, but they're very unhappy and they might not even be fighting. They've just sort of given up. They're now living as roommates. They're living in each other's orbit, but not really connecting at all. They've thrown their hands up. I've told some of them, like, really, we get one life, and that is so sad to think about living in such a lack of peace, a lack of joy, simply because you find yourself here, and you're between a rock and a hard place. So for those people, especially if you're the only one you can't control your spouse.
Yeah.
What are some steps you can take to keep the hope alive and get some of that peace and joy and love back into your relationship?
There are a lot of things that we can do. And I think that's one of the first things that we need to actually accept, that affection and intimacy can be learned, and we could do a lot of things to contribute to it. We can learn how to do this. A lot of your members are doctors and very educated people, probably married to very educated people, right? We probably are a very educated community and we read a lot. My question to a lot of my couples is, well, how many books have you read on marriage? And it's amazing how few books have been read about marriage. And yet they probably have written books, or papers, on other topics, but let alone they probably researched a lot of things in order to help them or help their clients. So read, and like there's a number, like Seven Habits for what? No, not Seven Habits. Sorry, Seven Principles for Making a Marriage Work by John Gottman. That's actually one of his pivotal books, and other books like that. Get a book, read through it, and apply it. I will say that is just one of the most general things that we could do. Within those books, you can actually figure out how to actually cultivate positive connection with each other. Get to know them. Listen more than you speak. Ask those questions. How are they doing? And actually care about them. Apply the golden rule. Do unto them as you'd have done to you. That can apply in so many ways. So if you want them to be interested in you and encourage you and to support you, well, how are you doing that with them? First, practice what you want to receive. That's one of the foundational, I think, things that we can do. And then get some guidance along the way. There's so many things that I could say you can do.
Yeah.
I could list it off right now. It starts with, though, the heart posture. Will I give to them what I want to receive? So the love and affection. So you could download conversation starters on your phone. And there are actually a number of apps that actually take you through conversation starters. And that is the first step of knowing each other. The second step is growing an intimate knowledge of each other. So not just I know things about you, but I know your heart. And then also we have shared experiences together. And it's not just vacations, but it's like we actually surf together. We actually are in doing projects together, community projects, or doing things like that. And then we're also having fun together. But it really starts with those small things often. Learn how to connect throughout the day with your spouse in order to cultivate that sense of connection and friendship.
And I think
I think I would venture to guess that 100% of people, if I ask a couple who was like not happy in marriage and both of them are just kind of what exactly we're talking about, and say, would you like for things to be better? 100% are yes, I would love for it to be better. I'd love to go back to the day. So I think with that logical side, that's like hashtag duh. Like, yes,
Right.
of course I want to. So I think if a couple can get just on the same starting page, like just ask one another, do we want this to be better? And if the answer is yes, great. If there was a series of tools that we could use, like those conversation starters, like, are we willing to play the game together? Are we willing to carve out some time? Are we willing to sit down and be uncomfortable for a period of time so that we can see what's possible on the other side?
Yes.
And as you often say when it comes to goals, Joe, it's like, are you willing to do the work that your goals entail? And that, I think, as you're talking, a lot of it goes back to human nature can be very selfish. And whether you're newly divorced and now you have to do the work on yourself before bringing that to your next relationship, a lot of people just don't do that work. And then they bring their same self to that next relationship that then doesn't work out. It's the same in marriage. And again, I see this with my members. It's like, well, she's not doing that, so I'm not going to do that. Right. Or she just won't even talk to me. So it's like excuses. It's not doing your part. So, we talk a lot about mindset here, but it is sort of a mindset shift of, do you want this to work or do you want to live in perpetual unhappiness?
Yes. And maybe the even if they don't mentality, even if they don't, I am going to be the kind of spouse that I want them to be. And you can actually flip around that self-centeredness and use it for yourself. Like, we are self-interested humans. We want to actually live life to the full and be happy and connected. They do too. And so, but we need to give to them what we want to also receive. And if we do, we're more likely to receive it in the future.
And we've talked about this before, but like is it the 5 love languages, written a million years ago?
Sure.
But such a good tool. And Sean, as you're talking about like understanding their heart. So it's like, how do they, I like gifts, just that's who I am. I like gifts. I came to that conclusion last year when I realized how bougie I actually am. So, and it feels silly to say that and superficial, That's not important to Mandy. Mandy doesn't like gifts, words don't mean much to her, but acts of service really do. That's not my natural inclination. So I have to work towards that. So understanding like how your spouse actually wants to receive that love too can be a really big key. And the other thing I'll say on this is I used to work in an organization that a lot of dudes would come out, and it was a very transformational event. And they'd always warn guys like, you're going to go home. You're going to be excited about all this stuff. Be prepared for your spouse not to be ready for that. It's like, oh, great. Here comes Joe again with another thing that he went to. It's like, be committed to the journey so that small things often, consistently over time, Sean and I go climb together, and he climbs circles around me almost literally. But it's like, I've started working out again. So I can't expect like I'm just going to instantaneously going to be in shape because I started eating right and exercising for a week. It's going to be, how about let's measure this in months? And so it's maybe the same thing for these couples who might be experiencing this. Apply these things over long periods of time, not short data sets that don't really give you much indication of anything.
Right. With that, I would just add, get help. If it's people join your group partly because of the help they receive, the coaching, and like podcasts like this, we taking in information and applying it. And that's wonderful. Do that with your marriage also. Like you could join with a marriage coach or a marriage therapist like me at any place, or I wouldn't say any counseling place. Do your due diligence, know who you're signing up for, get the help that will help. But do your read the books, and apply it, and then see the results. And I love how you have that long-term perspective, because it isn't just, it can be frustrating if you say, I brought up a conversation with my spouse, and they did such and such. And so I'm not going to do it again. If we had that mindset with the other aspects of our life, we would never be as successful as we were. What makes successful people is they continue to pursue, and they know that failure is part of the journey. And they're going to continue to pursue until they actually get that win that helps them to move to the next stage towards the goal that they want to attain. Do that in your marriage as well, and get that support that will help you along the way.
It seems like the advice for having a strong marriage is pretty much the same, whether your marriage is on the rocks or it's a really good marriage. It's like, if I were to ask, okay, I'm in a great marriage, Joe's in a great marriage, you're in a great marriage, how do we keep it that way? Probably continue
same things.
How do you stay in shape, right? It's the same.
It is. I would say if you're in a great marriage and you want to make it even better, then it's kind of like you've built a house. You have a strong foundation, and you have really good levels in it. You could spend time in the living room and make a meal in the kitchen together. And then you have the bedroom, like a happy, healthy sex life. You work through that and the intimacy that actually leads to that. And then, but you want to have like this balcony, or like rooftop porch where you can see the stars and you can dream together. That's when marriage actually becomes also exciting. It's because we can create something together now, because of where we're at relationally. We can create a wonderful family and leave a legacy. We can influence our community together. We can grow old and have an exemplary relationship that other people can look at and say, oh, I want something like that. That's wonderful. And so it's not just self-serving, but it actually leaves a path or a wake of goodness, where we can actually positively influence the world. And we could do that better because we're together.
I love that. The rooftop terrace where we can look at the stars again. I think that's interesting. Like, Mandy and I will be celebrating our 27th anniversary in May. And we've had just a great marriage all along. And it is like, there's new stages now. We're empty nesters. And so like life is very different. And that was one thing that I was honestly a little bit afraid about, because we had kids when we were really young. We got married at 21, had Joseph when we were 23. And it was like not a lot of time of just Joe and Mandy. And therefore we've tried to be really intentional about doing stuff together, and our side quest buddies that we do all the stuff together with, so it's like, I think sometimes when you look at that legacy element, it's like, it may look very different than it's looked up to this point. So how do you regenerate that? Like, what advice would you have for those people who are, long in the tooth on their marriage and they enjoy life and everything is good, but what do the rooftop terrace conversations look like or sound like?
How do we want our life and our marriage to impact those around us? Who do we want to impact? If you have kids, how do we now want to impact their relationship even after they've moved out? How could we be praying for them? What are the conversations we want to have with them? And how can we support them as they become young parents as well? So that could be a lineage within your family or a legacy within your family. A legacy within your community could be like, how do we want to influence our community through our church? Can we be a mentor couple? How can we give away money to fun things that are meaningful in the world and have a sense of purpose? And again, leave that legacy together so that it's not just like me or the money and honesty, but us together, we made an impact. And that sense of meaning can really deepen a relationship. It's nice to have retirement and have vacations and things like that and encourage that. But also thinking, okay, well, I've got a long life to live, hopefully. And how do we want to do this together? So those are dreaming conversations that can be, again, fun, vacation and stuff, but also meaning and legacy. Both of those can really fill out your sense of future with each other, because that's also something that really contributes to happy, healthy marriages. Is not just we're doing well now, but this is where we're going into the future.
Yeah, you and Angie are a really good example of that. Like, you were telling me about how you guys took some time and went to Estes Park and like took a few days just to like, let's talk about what's happening this year and planning and dreaming together. So maybe even sometimes it is just, you got to take some time and get away, get out of the clutter of life and dream together.
Yeah, we've done that a few times. So one time she actually bought it was a game of sorts that actually helped you to refine your life values and then how to apply that or live that out as a couple. And we did that. And that's what we did over we stayed up there for 2 nights. So the better part of 3 days. And it was great. It was a wonderful time of being guided through that process. This last one was more of a prayer retreat and just rest. And we spent time praying, and then we spent time eating over talking over some good food. And then going for walks. And so slowing down, getting away, having intentional conversations. It was beautiful. And but we needed rest at that point because we were going through difficulties in our business, changes and everything like that were happening. And so it just required different we needed to be a little bit more intentional with getting rest before we actually engaged in those conversations. Yeah.
What would you, Sean, as you look at your relationship with Angie, like if you were to say, this is what I want our relationship to be known for, what would you say that is?
Yeah. The foundation for me, I have a life verse. It's John 10:10, where Jesus said, I came that they may have life, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. I came that they may have life and life to the full. That's a life verse for me, and I've kind of like made a life verse for us as a family. And so I want our family mission to be, we live life to the full and we help others to do the same. We want to do that with all that we do. And that helps us to actually pursue freedom and joy in what God has given us, and also like go through the difficult trials of life that help us to grow into the humans He wants us to be, and to see that as a blessing, which sometimes trials can be it's hard to see them as a blessing sometimes. But in the end, when you look back and you see the redemptive purpose, you can say, oh, I see what you meant by that, what you intended. And then help others also to do that, to say, whether you're in trials or you're in triumph, there's purpose and meaning in this, and we'll walk with you through that as well. And so we help others to do that through our business or through our friendships, through we teach together. And that's just a source of joy for us. And and yeah, and then we get away with our kids and just have fun. We go traveling, we go hiking, we go on adventures with them. And that's part of the life to the full that's a little bit more free with them. And we want to create good memories that will actually influence who they are and who they become. And even the spouses they will someday meet and marry, So yeah, it's very full, but very centered around that life verse. Once you have like your true north
Yeah,
and you know where you're
direction.
going, and then you say, this is where we're heading, it makes life actually a lot more simple.
And I've seen that over and over. And for any doctor that's listening, who, most of the doctors that we work with are very, very successful. The men and women who get to work with us, like not being like exclusionary, but like when they qualify to work with us, it means they've achieved a really high degree of success. And family is often one of those areas that got neglected. And what I say all the time is, ancient wisdom would say, where there is no vision, the people perish.
Yep.
And I think that was true for nations back in the day. And I think it's true for businesses. And I think it's true for us and our own families. And so if you are a doctor who's listening to this and you feel like there's a lack of vision when it comes to family, and you don't have that, like Sean put his life verse, or that statement, this is our mission as a family, it would behoove you to spend some time and think about that. Because floundering and letting, like a ship that does not have a rudder, or does not have someone at the helm, is just kind of subjected to the waves and to the wind. And you're going to get blown all over the place. And it's not a good feeling for most of these high achieving people. So it may be time for you to step up and stand in that position of leadership, not just in your marriage, but with your family and the people who surround you. So probably need to get some help, along the way of doing that. Sean, is there how would people reach out to you if someone's like, I got to work with Sean, he's just the best ever, which I would highly recommend, but how would people get in touch with you or other resources that you have?
Yeah, sure. I'm always contactable through Cornerstone. Cornerstone Christian Counseling is our counseling practice. Even if you're not a Christian, we welcome you through our doors. And so yeah, you can find us at christiancounselingco.com. That CO is for Colorado. And or email us info@christiancounselingco.com, or even call us the old fashioned way. And we actually have humans that pick up the phone, and they will get in contact with me and set you up with me. And or one of our other counselors that specialize in a variety of approaches and perspectives. And you'll find help for whatever is keeping you from the life to the full that I think we all are offered.
And we will leave your info in the show notes. You shared so many good things with us. I love the house analogy that, once you have your foundation built and your bedroom built, now that allows you to really look out together and build this legacy, which is what our members are trying to do. But if your foundation isn't strong, that's where you need to start. And when we take people through their values staircase, we call it, so often when we picture ourselves at the end of our lives, it's like, what do you want to look back and say? And the most common answer is, I have no regrets. I lived the life that was meant for me, and I have no regrets. And if you find yourself in a marriage that just isn't as strong or happy as it could be, you deserve more than that. So now is the time to take that action so that you can build that legacy and not have the regrets. So in your opinion, if people were to take one thing away from this episode, this conversation, what do you want to leave people with?
Consider the life that you want to live and then intentionally pursue that, not just in your career, but take that approach to your marriage. Imagine the kind of marriage that you want to have, and then become and pursue becoming that kind of spouse. And first clean up your side of the street, I guess, and do your own work. And then invite your spouse to join that journey as well of pursuit towards this goal relationship of having a happy, healthy relationship. Because life is so much better. when you have a happy, healthy relationship. Your marriage is thriving. It just impacts everything, as we know. So, yeah, be intentional to pursue the vision, and get help along the way.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Zach, we hope you enjoyed this. Like our health, like our wealth, anything worth it, it takes intentionality, and it's worth the hard work. So we hope you enjoyed this episode. Share with your friends. If you don't work with us yet, you should be. And check Sean out if this is an area where you need some help. We are glad you're here. We'll talk to you next time. And until then, go be a wealth maverick.